Welcome. I'm Jeffrey Childs with the Martin County Emergency Management Agency. Part of my job as the Emergency Management Coordinator includes overseeing all facets of Martin County's REP program. This includes replacing radiological equipment on all the apparatus, calibration of equipment with the Florida Department of Health Bureau of Radiation Control that you would use in the field, coordinating exercises and drills with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, such as the FEMA Evaluated Medical Service Drill and Emergency Worker Vehicle Decontamination Drill, as well as the biennial Graded Emergency Operations Center exercise and BRC training with the hazmat team. We have updated our yearly online rep training for your Martin County Fire Rescue to provide you a better understanding of the rep program. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy the updated training. Module 1 will cover the 3 Mile Island incident, which gave rise to the REP program in the United States, the REP program in Florida, and its components to include additional radiological resources that can be requested, and the components that make up the Martin County REP program. The 3 Mile Island Power Station is near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It had 2 pressurized water reactors. Unit 1 generated 880 megawatts and went into service in 1974 and remained one of the best performing units in the country until it was decommissioned in 2019. Unit 2 generated 959 megawatts and was almost brand new at the time of the incident. The accident to Unit 2 happened at 4 a.m. on March 28th. 1979, when the reactor was operating at 97% power. It involved a relatively minor malfunction in the secondary cooling circuit, which caused the temperature in the primary cooling circuit to rise. This in turn caused the reactor to shut down, and shutdown took about 1 second. At this point, the relief valve failed to close, but instrumentation did not reveal that fact, and so much of the primary coolant drained away that the residual decay heat in the reactor core was not removed. The reactor core suffered severe damage as a result. The operators were unable to diagnose or respond properly to the unplanned automatic shutdown of the reactor. Deficient control room instrumentation and inadequate emergency response training proved to be the root cause of the incident. Within seconds of the shutdown, the pilot-operated relief valve on the reactor cooling system opened as it was supposed to. About 10 seconds later, it should have closed, but it remained open, leaking vital reactor coolant water to the reactor coolant drain tank. The operators believed the relief valve had shut because instruments showed the operators that a close signal was sent to the valve. However, they did not have instrumentation indicating the valve's actual position. Responding to the loss of cooling water, a high-pressure injection pump automatically pushed replacement water into the reactor system. As water and steam escaped through the relief valve, cooling water surged into the pressurizer, raising the water level in it. Operators responded by reducing the flow of replacement water. Their training told them that the pressurizer water level was the only dependable indication of the amount of cooling water in the system. Because the pressurizer level was increasing, they thought the reactor system was too full of water. Their training told them to do all they could to keep the pressurizer from filling with water. If it filled, they could not control pressure in the cooling system, and it might rupture. Steam then formed in the reactor primary cooling system. Pumping a mixture of steam and water caused the reactor cooling pumps to vibrate. Because these severe vibrations could have damaged the pumps and make them unusable, operators shut down the pumps. This ended forced cooling of the reactor core. However, as reactor coolant water boiled away, the reactor's fuel core was uncovered and became even hotter. The fuel rods were damaged and released radioactive material into the cooling water. At 6:22 a.m., operators closed the block valve relief between the relief valve and the pressurizer. This action stopped the loss of coolant water through the relief valve. However, superheated steam and gases blocked the flow of water through the core cooling system. Throughout the morning, operators attempted to force more water into the reactor system to condense steam bubbles that they believed were blocking the flow of coolant water. During the afternoon, operators attempted to decrease the pressure in the reactor system to allow a low-pressure cooling system to be used and emergency water supplies to be put into the system. By late afternoon, operators began high-pressure injection of water into the reactor cooling system to increase pressure and to collapse the steam bubbles. By 7:50 p.m. on March 28th, they restored forced cooling of the reactor core when they were able to restart one reactor coolant pump. They had condensed steam so that the pump could run without severe vibrations. Radioactive gases from the reactor cooling system built up in the makeup tank in the auxiliary building. During March 29th and 30th, operators used a system of pipes and compressors to move the gas to a waste gas decay tank. The compressors leaked, and some radioactive gases were released into the environment. These went through high-efficiency particle air filters, or HEPA filters, and charcoal filters, which removed most of the radionuclides except for the noble gases. When the reactor's core was uncovered on the morning of March 28th, a high-temperature chemical reaction between water and the zircaloy metal tubes holding the nuclear fuel pellets had created hydrogen gas. In the afternoon of March 28th, a sudden rise in the reactor building pressure shown by the control room instruments indicated a hydrogen burn had occurred. Hydrogen also gathered at the top of the reactor vessel. When the reactor's core was uncovered on the morning of March 28th, a high-temperature chemical reaction between water and the zircaloy metal tubes holding the nuclear fuel pellets had created hydrogen gas. In that afternoon, a sudden rise in reactor building pressure shown by the control room instruments indicated a hydrogen burn had occurred. Hydrogen gas also gathered at the top of the reactor vessel. From March 30th through April 1st, operators removed this hydrogen gas bubble by periodically opening the vent valve on the reactor cooling system pressurizer. For a time, Nuclear Regulatory Commission officials believed the hydrogen bubble could explode, though such an explosion was never possible since there was not enough oxygen in the system. 2 weeks after the incident, the President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, appointed a 12-member presidential commission to investigate the incident at 3 Mile Island. This group, known as the Kennedy Commission, conducted a comprehensive investigation of the incident and made recommendations based upon their findings. Their final report was issued to the President on October 30th, 1979. Here are a few of those recommendations. Number 1, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission should be restructured as a new independent agency in the executive branch. Abolish the 5-member commission and be replaced by a single agency head with agency-wide authority. Number 2, an oversight committee on nuclear reactor safety should be established. Its purpose would be to examine on a continuing basis the performance of the agency and of the nuclear industry in addressing and resolving important public safety issues. Number 3, although the Commission considered the responsibility for safety to be with the total organization of the plant, they recommended that each nuclear power plant company have a separate safety group that reports to high-level management. Number 4, it is important to attract highly qualified candidates for the position of senior operator and operator supervisor. Pay scale should be high enough to attract such candidates. Number 5, the Commission recommends the establishment of agency-accredited training institutions for operators and operator supervisors. Number 6, before a utility is granted an operating license for a new nuclear power plant, the state within which that plant is to be sited must have an emergency response plan reviewed and approved by the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Number 7, plans for protecting the public in the event of off-site radiation releases should be based on technical assessments of various classes of accidents that can take place at any given plant. Number 8, If emergency planning in response to a radiation-related emergency is to be effective, the public must be better informed about nuclear power. The Commission recommends a program to educate the public on how nuclear power plants operate, on radiation and its health effects, and on protective actions against radiation exposure. FEMA's REP program was established as a result of the incident at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant. Among other things, the Kennedy Commission called for the formation of an emergency preparedness framework specific to nuclear power plant incidents. The REP program responsibilities encompass only off-site activities, that is, state, tribal, and local government emergency planning and preparedness activities that take place beyond the nuclear power plant boundaries. The REP program provides guidance and technical assistance through reviewing and approving radiological emergency preparedness plans, managing and evaluating exercises that test those plans, training emergency personnel involved in nuclear power plant incident response, and assessments that serve as a condition for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in issuing licenses to nuclear power plants. Within all Florida emergency management programs, they are bound by Florida Statute 252, Emergency Management, which describes responsibilities and functions that each program must implement, such as the Special Needs Registry, pet sheltering, and more specifically to us, Chapter 252.60, Radiological Emergency Preparedness. Within this statute, it describes definitions of facilities, appropriate counties designated as risk, host, or ingestion, and powers and duties of the State Emergency Management Director during a radiological incident. In addition to the other plans required by this chapter, the Florida Division of Emergency Management shall develop, prepare, test, and implement as needed, in conjunction with the appropriate counties and the affected operator, such REP plans and preparedness requirements as may be imposed by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission or FEMA as a requirement for obtaining or continuing the appropriate licenses for a commercial nuclear electric generating facility. At the federal level, FEMA has created the REP Program Manual that describes each of the 116 criteria that local REP plans have to meet in planning standards A through P. These include assignments of responsibilities, on-site emergency organizations, emergency response support and resources, emergency classification levels, which we'll cover in Module 2, notification methods and procedures, exercises and drills, just to name a few. The Florida Division of Emergency Management will provide resource mobilization for a radiological incident at the power plant. Depending on the severity of the incident will initially depend on the state's response. Typically, at the alert level, an all-hazard incident management team will deploy to FPL's emergency operating facility in Fort Pierce. From here, they can process resource requests to the state EOC and also provide real-time data information. The federal government will provide the following resources, which will assist in gathering data to better plan for the response. The purpose of the Federal Radiological Monitoring and Assessment Center is to assist local, state, and tribal governments in their mission to protect the health and well-being of their citizens through verifying radiation measurements, interpretations of radiation distribution based on EPA, Food and Drug Administration, or local protective action guidelines, as well as characterization of overall radiological conditions. The Consequence Management Home Team's primary mission is to assist federal, state, tribal, and local governments by assembling and interpreting data in order to provide for public and worker safety, as well as minimize the social and economic impacts of a radiological incident. The Consequence Management Response Team's capabilities include command and control, data assessment, monitoring, health and safety, laboratory analysis, and logistical support. The National Atmospheric Release Advisory Center provides timely and accurate real-time assessment advisories to emergency managers for rapid decision-making during an incident involving a nuclear or chemical release. The mission of the aerial monitoring system is to provide a rapid survey of radiation and contamination following a radiological incident. The AMS accomplishes this by using specially equipped aircraft to conduct the surveys. These aircrafts are equipped to detect and measure radioactivity contamination on the ground. The Radiation Emergency Assistance Center and Training Site can provide deployable emergency medical and health physicist support teams nationally or internationally for dose assessments, diagnosis, treatment, advice, recommendations, and consultation for all types of radiological injuries or illnesses. The Advisory Team for Environmental, Food, and Health is a federal resource that is comprised of individuals from the EPA, the FDA, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, who can provide information on availability of food, animal feed, and water supply inspection programs to assure wholesomeness recommendations regarding the disposition of contaminated livestock, poultry, and contaminated foods, especially perishable commodities. The Southern Mutual Radiation Assistance Plan provides a mechanism for coordinating radiological emergency assistance capabilities among the 14 participating states that can provide resources and expertise needed for a radiological incident. Each state has a reserve of different radiological personnel and equipment. The REP program in Martin County works to inform the public during outreach events, emergency managers, and first responders on radiological preparedness. In addition, FPL sends out this public information card each year to every household and business in the 10-mile emergency planning zone that provides information on how they will be notified and what the emergency classification levels are, and if there's any action the public should take. The backside of the card provides the public information on specific actions they may take if they hear a siren, have children in school, or a family member in the hospital or nursing home. Specifically for emergency managers, we attend FEMA training to include the evaluated and non-evaluated exercises, regional and national workshops, and continuous training from FEMA. In addition, we participate on the St. Lucie Nuclear Power Plant Task Force, where we meet with other risk and host counties, BRC, FEMA, FPL, and the NRC to discuss our plans. For first responders, we provide yearly online training, the FEMA evaluated and non-evaluated medical service drill with the Cleveland Clinic, and the BRC's 8-hour radiological technician and operations training, which provides hands-on training with the equipment you use in the field. This concludes Module 1 and should provide you a greater understanding of how the REP program was started and what we do as a state and county to ensure those who would respond to a radiological incident have the best knowledge to respond. We hope you enjoyed this module, and Module 2 will cover the emergency classification levels and the recovery process of a radiological incident.